Just click the button.
Sorry, I'm gonna be really awkward because I didn't know what I was doing, and that's my fault.
Jeremy didn't know what he was doing.
Okay, so...
Hi, everybody. So this is how the whole night's gonna go, evidently.
Yeah, okay. Well, welcome to Creepy Campus live podcast thing, sort of. I'm going to be real honest, we haven't recorded an episode in a hot minute, so you all get to see a very interesting side of me, for sure.
Yeah, so we have recorded this podcast for 3 years now?
3 years. We started it during 2020, like everyone else did.
Yeah, people started baking bread, buying toilet paper, we started a podcast.
I also baked bread.
You did bake bread.
I mean, that's how the pandemic's supposed to work, right?
And made some chaotic cooking videos.
I did. No one look up, or actually no, look up my chaotic cooking videos and watch them so that I can get lots of views on them. So if you all find me through Creepy Campus Podcast's other social media, you can find that.
Don't do it.
No, you should. It's fine.
Don't do it. But my name is Doug Tate. I actually work here on campus in Housing and Residence Life.
Sorry. My name's Jeremy Coyd. I don't work here, but I actually am an assistant professor of theater at Lindsey Wilson College a little while away from here. Did you know Lindsey Wilson? Was that what that was? I get very excited. It's a very small college, but I like it.
But yeah, a few years ago we started the show really to talk about ghosts on college campuses, because there's a lot of them. It's one of those things that just every school you go to, what are you laughing about?
I don't know.
I'm getting close to the mic, are you?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
No, I'm usually the person that's controlling all the tech, so I'm just watching to see how close he gets to the mic, since I don't have to do it this time. But yeah, no, we did. We started this because, I mean, you've all been on college campuses before now, right? I mean, I almost said you're millennials. You're not millennials. But you all are in the generation that spends a lot of time on college campuses growing up, right? So you'll know they're not necessarily not creepy at times, right? Okay, I love a little bit of response. I am a professor sometimes too, so I do like to have responses. And I start teaching again next week, so thank you all.
It's like practice.
It's a little bit of practice for me. But yeah, it's creepy to be on a college campus sometimes, because you know that the campus has like a long history, and there's stuff that happened long before you got there, right? Lots of stuff went on, and what if things are a little weird moving forward from that?
Yeah, so all the things that happened, all the things that could have happened, all the things that might have happened.
All the things that we think happened but definitely didn't happen, but we're gonna pretend to believe it anyway.
Right.
Sorry, that's my whole spiel at the very beginning of this anyway. So, okay, I'm gonna be very honest, I didn't go to Western. I do not have that kind of background historical knowledge. Yes, I have some credits from Western, but I was a dual credit student back in like 2010, so...
Oh, I know, I've looked at your transcript.
I feel like that was not okay to admit out loud. It was a B, okay? I got a B in sociology. It's my fault I didn't do the assignment at the very end. I did it, okay? Don't do what I did. Don't do it. Okay, so since I don't have that, I am relying really heavily on a lot of research and a lot of word of mouth stuff, because I grew up in Tompkinsville, Kentucky, just about an hour down the road. And I grew up coming to Western a lot for different competitions and things, so my kind of knowledge is from what people would tell me when we would come here on the band bus. I was a band kid. And our band director would tell us a lot of these really creepy stories about Western after we would drive past Bowling Green, going to a competition or coming back. She made sure it was very, very dark when she did it. I don't know if it was just like to keep us awake and alive and interested.
And
nope, don't say it.
I'm not going to.
Nope, don't put that out there.
But I did go to Western, and a lot of these stories that we're going to tell tonight are things I heard while I was a student. Some true, some not true. Yeah.
I mean, most of them are true to an extent. So there's something in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's only one of these that I'm like, no.
Well, why don't we just go ahead and tell that one then?
Okay. So we've got a few different ones, so we'll bounce back and forth. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to drink water already. It's
Shocker.
Okay. So I'm going to start with what is known as a major urban legend on Western's campus. And here's the thing about this legend. You're going to recognize it, even if you don't know it here.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to tell it in a few different little ways. So let's see. I think I want to start with the way I heard it. So this was one of those really famous ones that was told on the band bus, coming back from a competition, going back to Monroe County so that we could, go home when our parents could pick us up at 2 in the morning. But you remember band?
No, I've repressed those memories actually.
Yeah, he was a band kid too. Don't let us fool you. So here's the story that I heard. I heard that decades ago, no definite time, just decades ago, 2 girls, they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates?
I didn't even mean to make that joke, and it was perfect. They were roommates, and they stayed here on campus over winter break. Now, here's the other kicker. I never knew what all this was until way later. So, during the break that they stayed, the girls took turns going to the showers. They felt that it would be safer if one of them stayed in the room with the door locked, while the other one showered, and they would just trade places. Understand the logic. Fully understand this. So one would stay in the room, door locked, walk down the hall to the bathroom, switch. So one night, one of the girls gathered her things and headed to the showers. Well, after she had been gone for a while, what is way longer than you should be gone just to take a shower, especially when you're the only people in the building, the second girl got concerned. But it was their rule that they don't open the door for anyone but the other person. They have to identify themselves. That's how they know that the other person's there to open the door. So after a while longer, she was still worried. She's kind of nervous. It's late. It's really, really late. And all of a sudden, she hears scratching at the door. So that became increasingly disturbing, right? Because she kept yelling and asking who it was. If you're trying to scare me, stop, whatever. This isn't going to work. But nothing got through. No sound was coming back other than the scratching. So the fear finally crept up to a fever pitch, and she snuck out of the window in her room and ran off to find help, eventually finding the police. When the police came back to the dorm, they found the girl's roommate dead in the hall outside the room. She had been attacked with an axe while she was showering, and she had crawled back to the door. Unable to speak, however, she resorted to scratching at the door. Now, the police informed the roommate that had she opened the door, it was very likely that she would have been murdered by the killer, who they knew had escaped that night from a mental hospital. That's the way I heard it. Okay?
I've never heard it that way.
Really?
I've never heard it as the shower swap and the sneaking out the window. Never heard it that way.
So that's one way we heard it, right? And then during the process of trying to prep for this particular show, we did a lot of digging around through the library archives.
Bless the Kentucky Museum and Library Special Collections. They saved our butts for this entire show.
So many articles from the 60s forward. So one of the articles that I found was really short and sweet. I think this one is from the 70s. I've got 2 citations here and I can't realize which one's which because I deleted one.
That's gonna be points off the
Did we
paper.
just say MLA? I teach MLA.
Yeah, I used APA, so I don't know what that's.
Anyway, here's one version that was published in a Herald. About 40 years ago, during spring break, a man climbed through the window in the dorm, then called White House, now known as Schneider Hall, and murdered a sleeping girl with an axe. Now that girl managed enough strength to scratch the door of another girl who was too terrified to answer. When the second girl opened the door the next morning, she discovered the girl with the axe embedded in her head. And the legend says that the girl's body now wanders the hallways, scratching on doors. And some residents say that they've experienced mysterious door slammings, footsteps, and unlocked doors that lock them inside the bathroom. Okay, and that is what it would have looked like at the time that this story is supposed to happen. This is now known as Schneider Hall, but it was obviously known as Whitestone Hall at the time because it's white.
In stone.
Very original.
Those
okay?
poor Gatton kids.
Okay, so that is the other version, and there's one more that I want to tell because it's a little bit better.
Okay.
So, we're going to go to this picture for you because this is what the rooms looked like. And I showed it to Doug earlier and I said, is this not where you would think you were going to get murdered? Because it's just the old school look and feel of it.
Yeah.
None of the rooms look like that anymore. Just FYI. This is very, very long time ago.
It looks like a Hitchcock movie.
It looks like what?
A Hitchcock movie.
It does. It looks like a Hitchcock movie. That's exactly right. Okay, so this is the other version that came again from another Herald that I think was published in 1987. So it's a little bit more recent, okay? So this one starts with, the escaped lunatic pulled himself up Whitehall's fire escape, dragging his weapon, an axe, behind him. He quietly forced his way into an upper story window, then trudged down the steps to the next floor. He stealthily walked to the end of the hall and halted in front of the room at the end of the hall. Gripping his axe, he shoved the door open. The man stepped quietly into the room, and much to his surprise, the room wasn't empty. One of the counselors, a girl named Judy, was in bed asleep. Startled, the man stumbled and woke the girl, who stared at the intruder unbelievingly. The axe flashed, the man ran back up the hall and disappeared down the fire escape. The girl, bleeding profusely, dragged herself to the other end of the hall, where the second counselor was staying. Too weak to stand, she scratched at the door, but the other girl was too scared to open. It was the next morning before the scared girl opened the door, and there, at the bottom of her door, was Judy, laying dead with an axe in her skull, with bloody fingers where she'd been scratching at the door. That was a little more fleshed out, right?
That was a little more graphic.
Yeah, oh yeah, and this was published in a Herald.
Okay, well. But, okay, one thing sticks out to me about every version of the story is the escaped lunatic piece.
Yeah.
Because, who here has seen the Halloween movies? Alright, so John Carpenter, who directed those movies, lived in Bowling Green for a while. His dad was actually a professor here at Western. Michael Myers, escaped lunatic. I wonder, because we know there's some like street names and some neighborhood names and things that were pulled from Bowling Green and the surrounding area into the Halloween movies. I wonder if the concept of the escaped lunatic was pulled into.
I would say somewhat yes, especially since this was published alongside one of those articles.
Yep.
Obviously staged, but they put this it wasn't in a Herald, this was in a Talisman. This was in one of the yearbooks.
Yep.
Alongside this story, they said, let's post someone to look like the killer. Okay, so the reason I have issues is because this story's not original. I hate to be the debunker because I'm the one that's like, ghosts. You know the guy that does aliens? Ghosts. That's me.
It's true.
So this one I have to debunk because this same story exists on so many college campuses throughout the country. If you Google this story, Snopes will find it and go, no, it's not real. Plus, and again, we spent a lot of time researching. I got a free trial to newspapers.com to try and find all this stuff.
Don't forget to cancel that.
It's a thing to cancel it because I don't want to pay for it after this.
Okay.
But there's no record of that ever happening in Bowling Green. So, do we think Schneider Hall's haunted? Possibly. I think that we can't discount what people say about it. I can't say that what their experiences were didn't happen. But I have to say that the story of the girl getting murdered in there has to be thrown out. So if you all hear about this one on campus, it's an urban legend. And if you've ever seen, what year did that come out?
What year did what come out?
Have you all ever heard of the movie Urban Legend?
Chirp, chirp.
I've never felt more 30 than today.
Granted, I'm older than you, but I
I know.
don't watch horror movies, so.
You've seen that though, right?
No. I don't do scary movies. Yeah, right? It's weird. It's weird. I like the ghosty things. I don't like scary movies. I don't like the theatrical part of it.
Anyway, watch Urban Legend because this story unfolds in that movie as well. It's literally part of the storyline because it's such a prolific urban legend across the country on college campuses. Okay, I'm done. Now that I feel old, you can talk.
Okay. I'm going to talk about older things, but...
I mean, it's older things, but they're not...
They're not axe murders?
They're not axe murders, and they're not movies that no one's heard of from the early 2000s.
You know, that's older than them, then.
Stop. Stop.
All right, so moving actually literally next door, many people believe that spirits remain after death because that person had some type of unfinished business, right? They had some standing obligation, something they wanted to see through. In my story, that might be true of the de facto grandmother to thousands of hilltoppers. All right. So Maddie McLean came to Bowling Green from Mississippi in 1902 and enrolled at the Bowling Green Business College, one of the schools that merged into WKU. After graduation, she accepted a position as President Cherry's private secretary.
Oh, sorry, that was my cue.
I don't know how to cue you. And this position as secretary for the president of the university, of the college, required an intense level of diplomacy, resolve, and patience. And Miss Maddie was known to handle it wonderfully. Students came to know her as a very maternal figure. They went to her with all their problems, all their drama. She helped them find jobs. She helped them find apartments in town. She helped direct President Cherry's never-ending stream of visitors and correspondence. One student recalled that she, quote, absorbed more shocks and soothed more ruffled souls than we will ever know. Another student said when he reached the end of his rope, she helped find more rope.
So we love her.
We love her.
We love McQueen.
We love Maddie McLean.
I just want to call her McQueen, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So, when Miss Maddie retired in 1945, she left generations of students with memories of her efficiency and her loyalty. But when she died in 1954, she appeared to leave something else behind. Although she used to live in Potter Hall in an apartment there, some say her spirit remains on campus, residing where else? McLean Hall, a residence hall built in 1947 and named in her honor. So before McLean Hall went co-ed, the women who lived there sensed Miss Maddie's presence. She thinks of us as her girls, one of the students said. They could hear her strolling the halls, checking up on things, looking out for them. Communications with Miss Maddie, via your favorite thing, the Ouija board, found her as a friendly, motherly type.
You'll find out later.
But sometimes she liked to play tricks on the girls and even appear to them from time to time upon request. So,
Is that a cue?
yeah. In 2000, the building underwent a renovation and reopened as a co-ed hall, housing both male and female students. And personal accounts from male students show that Miss Maddie might not have been okay with dudes in the hall. Just saying, she didn't seem to like it.
I don't know why the wording of that I don't like.
But one of those accounts actually comes directly from some friends of mine while I was a student here. So my friends Drew and Dave lived in McLean, and they were sitting in the room one year, and evidently one of them made a slightly off-color joke while they were talking. Just dudes being bros.
I don't like that either.
Yeah, it didn't feel good coming out.
No. So we're gonna strike that from the record. He never said that.
But they suddenly heard a crash come from their bathroom. On walking in, they found that several bottles of shampoo and body wash had fallen out of the shower caddy, but the shower caddy was still hanging on the shower head, not moving. It's like the bottles had jumped out of the shower holder and had fallen and broken apart in the bottom of the shower, like plastic body wash bottles smashed from falling.
Huh.
Yeah. So even in life, it's fair to say that Miss Maddie had a good eye on things going on around campus, but in the afterlife, she may have taken that phrase a little too literally. So prior to a refurbishment of the lobby of McLean in 2019, a portrait of Miss Maddie McLean hung over the fireplace. That painting's since been moved to the Kentucky Museum. I'm actually the one that had to carry it out of the building. And so I was face to face with that for a while. But many students over the years have claimed that Maddie's eyes would follow them as they walked across the lobby. Others would say that her lips would curl into the slightest of smiles as they walked by, which feels worse, right? Would you rather have eyes following you or a smile?
Okay, I don't want either of them because I don't like the phrase lips curling. There is nothing about that that's okay. Oh, it's like those cartoons.
It's like the Grinch when the Grinch smiles. That's what I picture it as.
So no, I don't want a painting of a dead woman to do that. No.
I don't want any painting to do that.
No, I like Harry Potter.
But anyway, that is the story of McLean Hall, which of course still houses students today. Anybody live in McLean?
No one here lives in McLean?
There's not a lot of freshmen that live there.
So that joke didn't land, sorry.
Yeah, so. Bye.
Y'all, I haven't slept in a week. So you're getting a very rare form of me. Okay, so now I get to talk about the thing that I know so little about that it is hilarious how much I had to research. I'm going to talk about Greek life hauntings.
You know nothing about Greek life.
I know zero. I went to a small private liberal arts college. I did not go to a school that had Greek life. I had no desire. It was not my thing. So researching this was kind of interesting because I had no clue what I was looking at for a little while. But I'm going to go through several of them. They're pretty small, some of them, so bear with me on this one, especially this first one. So we're starting with Kappa Delta. This is not the house that I'm going to be talking about. This is the current house, but there was no picture anywhere on the internet, in the archives, anywhere of what the old house looked like. So just look at this house where Kappa Delta currently resides and pretend that we're talking about a long time ago. Just bear with me. Okay, so the house that Kappa Delta was in was supposedly haunted by a ghost who was actually named Mrs. Norman. Stop naming your ghosts, first of all.
Why?
Because
the ghosts are people too. Or ghosts were people?
So, some of the girls claimed that the previous owner had died in the house before it became a sorority house. So some of the legends also say that when the sorority moved into the house originally, after they had bought it, there were several rooms that were painted completely black and filled with mirrors. Now, I don't know if that's true, or if that's a little 1980s-ish satanic panic world.
I don't know a lot of things. I know you're not supposed to point mirrors at each other.
But yeah, you're not supposed to point mirrors at each other ever, so this could be an interesting journey they're on. One former president of that sorority said that she had dreams of being held down, and they were so real that she couldn't tell what was dream and what was real at the time.
That's called sleep paralysis.
I was going to say, that's sleep paralysis, if y'all are into any of that mess. She could have had a sleep paralysis demon, but I don't know. Or maybe they didn't have the wording for it at the time. It's very prolific now.
The original Big Red is my sleep paralysis demon.
If you've never looked up the very old pictures of Big Red, that will be your sleep paralysis
It
demon.
really will. It really will.
Anyway, so in Kappa Delta, some of the sisters reported hearing hammering set.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is your new sleep paralysis demon.
You're welcome. You're welcome for that.
You did that.
I did.
Okay, so some of the sisters reported at the time hearing hammering in the walls at night, and they all assumed that someone was banging things or the pipes were acting up or something wild. So they called a big house meeting, and at the meeting, no one owned up to it. Everyone swore that no one was making the noises, and all of these reports continue up until around the time that they go into this new house. So we don't have answers for it. We don't have any answers for what was happening, but they named the ghost Mrs. Norman and said, well, we'll just talk to her.
And Mrs. Norman liked construction?
I guess. So that's Kappa Delta. So then let's go over to Kappa Sigma, okay? Again, I'm learning these things, right? I didn't have a picture of this house either, but this is from inside the house. So I don't know what they're doing in that fireplace, but this is part of that world. So the Kappa Sigma house was supposedly haunted by a ghost named Victor. I don't
That's
like
an odd name for a ghost.
it is. So Tommy Harper, he was a senior in 1988, said, he's my roommate. Seriously, we're on good terms. Apparently Tommy had spoken to Victor through a Ouija board. Now let me get one thing very quickly straight. It's gonna come up a few times in here. I'm probably gonna bring that back up every single time, and I'm not happy about it. You stop asking for trouble. These are not helpful. These are not good things.
The number of times I've thought about hiding a Ouija board in your house.
That you've thought about it or that you did it?
That I've thought about. Have you found one in the house? I haven't done that, so
I'm changing the code to my house and Doug's no longer allowed over. So, they used a Ouija board to talk to this ghost, and apparently the ghost said that his name was Victor and said, keep all forces from harming me. To which Tommy responded, cool.
Wait, so the ghost asked not to be, like, exorcised?
I guess? Please don't call a priest. I don't know. This is directly from multiple articles. This is a hodgepodge of different things. So, here's where it gets weirder for Victor. So Tommy once had told a friend that some people don't believe in Victor, that he's not real. Now, upon saying this, Tommy's lights went off in his room, but not the radio. Nothing else in the house went off either, just his lights. And once Tommy clarified that he believed in Victor, that it was other people that didn't believe in him, all the lights came back on.
You know, some egos need validation. And I appreciate the Tommy
I should be allowed to do all this too good. I'm gonna add a note in here that just says #justice for Victor. And I need to upload that to our Instagram.
Justice for Victor.
Okay, so then we look forward, right? There's a 1992 edition of the Herald that reports that students used another Ouija board. Stop it. And those students wanted to make contact with what they were experiencing in the house. Now, I don't know if it was that the legend of Victor was gone, so Victor didn't have anyone that remembered his name, or what it was.
Justice for Victor.
Well, we're about to find out justice for someone, because these students said that their ghost was not Victor, but in fact a cowboy named Jim.
Victor and Cowboy Jim.
So, apparently, this house was actually his own personal purgatory, or at least that's what he communicated to them through the demon board.
Its own purgatory?
Yeah.
Because a frat house sounds like my personal hell.
I mean, insane. But also, not, again, look at me. I majored in theater. I was in band.
I got nothing.
Yeah, okay. So, apparently Jim follows a really specific routine daily. He visits each room at a very specific time, which is both, okay, we're on this, but also, why?
So, OCD cowboy Jim.
It is. One student said that Jim has taken cigarettes from his room, and that tells you how dated this is. Because, come on. But he even once saw his own lit cigarette flare as though Jim were taking a drag off of it.
Oh.
So if ghosts smoke, I'm confused.
He just wanted to bum a cig.
But here's the thing. The guy says in this article, don't worry. He says that Jim's really considerate. He'll never take my last pack, but he'll take my second to last pack.
A true, but
I don't know what to do with him, so.
I appreciate how polite these ghosts at Kappa Sigma are.
Right? Like, all these others are like, this person was murdered and we don't know where they came from. And then we get Jim and Victor.
Maybe they're friends. Ghost friends.
Okay, so let's move over. Again, couldn't find a picture of the house, but could find a picture of a Rush event. But this one is, please forgive me. I tried, I wrote it out phonetically. Alpha Xi Delta? Is that right? Did I say it right?
I don't
Xi?
Most people just say AZD, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, AZD, whatever. I don't know. I have it in front of me. Anyway, this house that these people were in, supposedly haunted by the figures of a woman and a little boy. Which, if there is nothing scarier than a little boy ghost,
Like Casper? Casper's a little boy.
No, Casper was friendly, remember? And he was all cartoony.
Yeah.
This boy's not. So, people claim to have seen the woman and the child looking out the window of the president of the sorority's room. Okay? In addition to these creeps, why did I write these little creeps?
You were creeped out by this little boy?
I guess. So they also report hearing unexplained footsteps and ringing bells in the house, which to me is the little boy,
Yeah.
just like playing with things. So one student actually reported that she went downstairs to the television room. If that doesn't date this story. I wrote LOL.
Did you really?
I did write LOL in all caps. She went down to the television room to turn off the light. As soon as she flicked that light switch off, she heard singing behind her. Exactly. Wherever the no came from, that's it. So, one explanation for this haunting comes from students who say that there was a fire in the house that killed a child. So supposedly that could be where this came from. So where did they get this information? Did they find it in a newspaper? Was it a known fact? Was it something else? They used a Ouija board again. Do you want ghosts? Because this is how you get ghosts, okay? So they used a Ouija board, and they heard from a spirit named Stephen. Who died.
Do you think Steven
I
knows
shouldn't be
Jim?
laughing. This is a bad part of the story.
Do you think Steven knows Jim and Victor?
No, because Stephen is too young to be associated with them. That's weird. Okay? So Stephen apparently, according to this Ouija board, died in a house fire at the age of 7. Now again, there's no reports of this, so we can take it for what it is. But from then on, all of the guys living in the house just walked around going, oh, it's Steve. Or girls, sorry. All the girls walking around the house. Just walking around saying, oh, it's Steve.
Steve.
Why did I tell this story? Okay. We're moving on because this one's a little bit more weird. So this is the Sigma Alpha Epsilon house. okay? And I'll probably just say SAE from now on because I cannot do all that. So these are actually pictures of the house that I'm talking about. The only 2 pictures we could find. I could only find one, and he found the other one.
I think it's really suspicious that none of these houses exist anymore. Like all new houses.
You know what sits on this place? A parking lot. They had to salt the earth. I don't actually know if that's true, but so this house, it once stood at 1410 College Street and apparently served as a hospital during the Civil War. We love that, right? So many people believe that some of those patients actually never left the house. And to be fair, I can't blame them, because I'd be mad too if I was in the middle of a war and the things that I was actually dying of were typhoid, dysentery, measles, malaria.
Is this Oregon Trail? You have dysentery.
You died of dysentery. So actually that was the thing. That was what they were dying of. These were super unsanitary conditions. This is a house. This is not a hospital. Okay, this is not a good situation to be in for a million reasons. So in this house, they feel that there are wooden floors that creak when no one's around. People are walking, but there's no one there, you know. One instance involves one of the SAE brothers studying, or no, not one of, a group of them studying during finals week. The answering machine in the house kept coming on, even though the phone didn't ring. So the answering machine was acting like it was trying to record a message, but the phone never rang. And I hope that's not such a dated reference.
I was just say, I don't.
It's like getting a voicemail, but no one ever called. Which I know happens sometimes with weird stuff, but that's what it is. So one of the brothers just like offhandedly said, well, at least it isn't leaving any messages. Uh-oh. And then the phone rang. When they picked it up though, no one responded.
Could have been Victor. Victor and Steve prank calling.
Only if Victor can drive and can get to this house.
He was calling to ask for a ride.
This is the problem doing these live. So, okay, that is one that I find weird, because I don't like the idea of an answering machine just continuously going off, but the most common ghost for the house isn't that one. The most common ghost for this house is described as a tall, slender, military man with a long overcoat and hat. Right? Good. Awesome. We love it. I don't want to even guess anything else about it. Except that apparently, the SAEs use a Ouija board. These people, I cannot tell
To be
you.
fair, they're not all the same people. Like,
I know, but how did this many people make the same mistake?
a very strong marketing team at Hasbro.
They're all stupid.
Okay, so apparently the SAEs used a Ouija board to reach out and ask the man's name. And they report that the board spelled out that the ghost's name was Kevin. And not just that, his favorite number was 7.
Kevin 7.
Kevin 7. And this makes sense, right? Since there have in fact been strange events in room number 7 in the house.
Oh.
So one night, it's reported that a refrigerator light went out, and a light in the room went out, and then seconds later, the door slammed shut in the room.
So the refrigerator light went out, and then the room light went out when the door closed. But when you close a refrigerator, the light goes out.
That's not... Listen to the words that I'm saying. Refrigerator light out. As if refrigerator's open, okay? Light goes out.
Okay.
Then the light in the room goes out.
Okay.
Not at the same time. Boom, boom. Then the door shuts. Okay, was that clearer?
Yes, that was better.
Okay, so the brothers that were present in the room at the time, they asked that if there were any spirits present to give them a sign. And suddenly, an alarm clock went off in the room, and the alarm clock was coincidentally set to go off at 7. I don't know. I ain't trusting it. I'm moving rooms. I don't want to be in room 7. So in another room, a fan just kept turning on no matter what. The student who lived there kept getting up, turning it back off, only for it to come back on. Assuming that his roommate was playing a joke on him, the student got up to yell at his roommate, which is not good things to do. Don't yell at your roommates. Just please don't do that. It's not nice. But got up to have a confrontation. And at that moment, the fan fell off the shelf that it was on, and the student noticed his roommate wasn't even there. No? You don't like when electronics do things like that.
No, I do not.
So the thing we know now, though, is that on April 7th, 2005, it burned down. So a fire destroyed that older house. Luckily, no one was hurt, but the question remains, has Kevin accompanied the brothers to their new home on 14th Street?
No, there's no 7 involved.
Absolutely not! Ma'am! What we're not gonna do is ask them to come in! Okay, I have one more that is this before we go on. And it's very, very fast. All this one is the, say, Lambda Chi Alpha.
You got it.
I got it. Lambda Chi Alpha house. So before the house was purchased by the fraternity, it's reported that a girl had been killed here. Again, couldn't find record of it, just reports. It's oral history at that point. So since moving into the house, members have reported seeing a young girl running across the lawn, and that's the part that scares me. It's the only reason I left it in here because it's so short. No.
What?
If I wake up, okay, I own a house, right? If I wake up because something feels off, or I'm just like up because I have to get something to drink, whatever.
Yeah.
And I see a little girl run across my front lawn, I'm freaking out.
True.
I mean, everyone would freak out.
Yeah.
It's 2 a.m., it's 3 a.m. Why is she running across my lawn?
Get off my yard.
That should be clearly.
I'm just imagining you with holy water, like, get off my lawn.
So that's one thing that just like immediately freaks me out. I can't deal with it. But apparently she goes around, she turns off lights, she moves people's belongings when they're asleep. And this one's weird, so I had to keep it in. One student went to sleep with a candle lit on his nightstand.
Well, that's a bad idea in general.
Like, I put in the parentheses, absolutely not.
Does this house burn down too?
No.
Oh, okay.
But he went to sleep, candle on his nightstand, still burning, which is just dumb. Don't do that. Actually, I don't think you can have. I don't think you can have candles. In which case, don't have candles. But at home, yes, okay. But don't go to sleep with it.
No candles.
Candles are like weed.
Gotta put my other hat on. No candles.
No candles. But when he woke up, that candle had been moved to the foot of his bed, which is another reason not to go to sleep with a candle.
That sounds worse.
Right, you're gonna burn the house down.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't burn down, but it was razed in 2019, so it was demolished. They don't live there anymore.
They rebuilt it.
Oh, did they do it right on top?
Yep.
Oh, well, they lost the pretty house, so it could still be haunted.
Could be.
I think that's pretty. Does my house look scary?
No.
No, okay. No.
Is your house haunted now?
Y'all heard enough from me. It's Doug's turn to talk for a minute.
Alright. So all of those stories are connected to a place, right? Something tragic that happened there, or something special that happened there. There's some kind of connection to that location. But what if the connection is not to a place, but to an item?
Do I know what you're talking? Oh, I do.
You do. You do.
Vaguely know. I don't know the story though.
Okay, so Gabrielle Robertson began teaching Kentucky State history at Western Kentucky State Normal School, one of the other schools that rolled into WKU, in 1914. But when she got here, she discovered that there was only one book about Kentucky in the library. So, awkward, right? So she made it her personal mission to expand the collection. As the volume of materials began to grow, she began to advocate for a building to house it all. So President Cherry expanded her idea to include a museum and began to raise money through the College Heights Foundation in 1928. Construction of a 40,000 square foot structure began on August 4th, 1931, and the exterior was completed that fall. However, the Great Depression was going on at the time, made it really hard to raise money, and so they could complete the outside, but the inside was completely empty, so it was just a shell.
Oh.
Yeah, but even so, the unfinished interior was temporarily used as a classroom space from 1935 to 1937.
Imagine how echoey that inside of that building was with nothing in it.
Just a big open box.
I couldn't have done that.
Yeah. President Cherry would die in 1937, 2 years after launching the second fundraising campaign to have the building finished. The Kentucky building was finally completed in September 1939 with funding from faculty, students, the general public, and the Public Works Administration. They actually sent piggy banks out to school children across the Commonwealth to raise money through kids saving their coins and donating it back to the museum, which is really sweet.
I was gonna say I don't feel like it's stealing, but I do feel really awkward. I love the mission of it. Don't get me wrong. But I felt the same feeling. It does feel awkward.
So it was dedicated on the building was officially dedicated on November 16th, 1939, which was at the time known as Founders Day, because it would have been President Cherry's 73rd birthday. Miss Robertson, who started this whole thing, would actually live until 1970. So
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when it finally opened, the Kentucky building had reception areas, classrooms, museum galleries, and library reading rooms that housed an extensive collection of manuscripts, artifacts, and books. A $2.7 million renovation in the 1970s would double its size to 80,000 square feet. So exactly what kind of stuff is housed in the Kentucky Museum? So war letters.
Oh my gosh!
War letters from GIs to their sweethearts, family Bibles with generations of births and deaths carefully inscribed, children's toys, 19th century quilts, antique farm tools, local indigenous artifacts, photographs, diaries, clothing, jewelry, furniture. You can imagine some of these items would have been deeply personal to their owners. I mean, how would any of you feel if in 100 years we printed out the contents of your phone and put it up for everyone to see?
It would just be really cringy,
Right?
Because it's just all memes back and forth.
Here's some Snapchat stories from 2022.
Here's some Snapchat stories of Jeremy in grad school crying. That's what you all would see.
So staff in the Kentucky building have reason to believe that some of the owners of these items have actually hung around to keep an eye on their stuff. So many staff and visitors have reported a feeling of being watched as they move about the building. A weekend curator reported that she once glimpsed a dark-haired man dressed in old-fashioned mourning clothes.
I knew that cue.
So this is not the actual what she saw, but an idea of what might have looked like. A later photograph of that same curator taken in the building showed that gentleman might have appeared behind her as sort of a hazy shape. I wish I could find that picture. I couldn't find it anywhere.
The hazy shape.
They took a picture of this woman and they saw the hazy shape of this man behind her.
Ew.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Student workers have felt rushes of cold air and heard unidentified noises in the building. Books and storage areas have been found inexplicably left open on tables when people knew that they had been shelved. It's almost as if a spirit had pulled a book off the shelf and was reading about their own life.
I also don't want to read about my own life.
I mean, if I come back and want to read how I died, maybe, I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. But creepiest to me, though, is the toy room.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. So the museum houses a collection.
Why does it look like that?
Why does it like to be haunted?
That is staring into my soul.
It's Porky Pig.
It might be Porky Pig, but it's Porky Pig the sleep paralysis.
That's what you see at the end of your life. That's all, folks.
Oh, my dreams are gonna be so bad tonight.
Yep. So the museum houses a collection of over 2,800 toys and games dating back hundreds of years. There have been reports of the sound of bells and of children's laughter coming from the closed, locked room. It might be
Nervous, Steven. Laughter like that is not okay.
A series of photos taken in the room by a group of amateur ghost hunters revealed a mysterious white haze that seemed to shift around the room. Yeah. So this is actually one of those photos.
Is that a fox?
I think it's a teddy bear.
Oh. It looks like a fox, and I want to imagine that someone wants you to give their fox back. They've been putting my stuff in a museum.
During a visit to the Kentucky building, a psychic once explained that many of the artifacts it houses carry an attachment or an imprint of the life of a particular person. The energy given off by these attachments can be detected by living persons in numerous ways, including hearing strange noises, getting that uncomfortable tickle in the back of your neck,
Getting the ick.
Strange noises, cold gusts of air, and even actual apparitions. The psychic picked up the presence of a female spirit in a stairwell and an entire group of people, including a child, in a storage room. These presents weren't necessarily negative, according to the psychic. She just pointed out they were curious, wondering perhaps how this place came to possess their diaries, their letters, or maybe just their favorite rocking chair.
Oh, that old furniture room is creepy.
So,
Is that all about the Kentucky Museum?
that is all I have about the Kentucky Museum. You should check it out sometime.
It's amazing.
Yeah, actually you should, because it's kind of cool.
Really amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It just might be a little haunted.
The Quilt Place just got their budget back and everything reopened.
Yes, that is the reason to go. And then see a ghost. No. You have one more?
Oh, I do have another one. All right. So, no one lived in McLean, but does anyone live in Regents or Normal?
Oh no.
All right.
I'm ready to quit.
So, on the land where Regents and Normal now sits, just 4 years ago stood two other residence halls, Bemis Lawrence and Barnes Campbell. The two halls were mirror images of each other. Construction began on these twin buildings in 1966, and they were officially dedicated on October 14th, 1967. At opening, Bemis Lawrence served as an all-women's hall and Barnes as an all-men's hall, and they served that way pretty much their entire existence. There was a few years of co-ed as they were being renovated and they shared spaces. But Barnes Campbell housed 196 rooms and 392 students. The 9-story men's dormitory was considered fully equipped and fairly luxurious for its time, with air conditioning. Whoa. Laundry facilities, a spacious lobby and waiting areas, apartments for a director and assistant director, and two full self-service elevators. Unfortunately, less than a month after the dedication ceremony, a tragedy would strike Barnes Campbell Hall that would permanently alter the history of the building. So, shortly after midnight on Tuesday, November 7th, 1967, James Wilbur Duvall, a 20-year-old junior from Litchfield, Kentucky, was returning to his 5th floor room from the showers. On his way, James noticed that one of the two elevators had stopped working. So there's two things to know that are important for the story. One, James was a resident assistant in Barnes Campbell. He's one of the student staff members that worked in the building, just like your RAs do today. The second thing to know is that it's pretty normal for new elevators to fault out or get stuck when they're first up and running, as those safety mechanisms get dialed in. There's little things they have to adjust, so it's easy for them to trip and break down. So James had observed maintenance crews restart this elevator before, and had even completed the restart himself once. He thought he could handle it, no big deal. After his supervisors had learned that, though, they explicitly told James not to attempt it himself again, that he wasn't trained, he shouldn't do that. But he was stubborn, and James had squirreled away one of the keys needed to open the elevator doors and get the car running again. So upon realizing the elevator had once again stopped, James walked to his room, dropped off his shower stuff, and still clad in only his bathrobe, returned to the elevator to complete the fairly routine task. All that had to be done was to use the key to open the neighboring elevator door, reach into the shaft, and flip a switch to restart the elevator car. However, James forgot one vital step. Make sure the elevator shaft you were about to lean into was clear. Unfortunately, James forgot to look up, and he didn't see the still operational car coming down. So James was knocked into the elevator shaft, where he was crushed between the side of the elevator shaft and a steel beam on the elevator car, killing him instantly. So according to newspaper reports at the time, it took rescue workers over an hour to extract James's body from the elevator shaft. The hall director at the time was actually taken to the hospital to be treated for shock before James's body was ever even removed from the building. So as tragic, of course, as that incident is, it's not where this story ends. So just over a year after James's death, Assistant Hall Director Howard Bailey had just completed a full sweep of the building prior to the 1968 winter break closing. With all residents gone and the building empty, Bailey went out to eat. Upon returning to the building, Bailey heard the sound of running water. On searching the building, he found that every sink and every shower on the 5th floor was running full blast. Once he turned them off, he walked back out of one of the bathrooms and noticed a trail of wet footprints leading from the
I forgot about this image.
found a trail of wet footprints leading out of the bathroom door, down the hall past the elevators to the locked RA room. Upon unlocking the door, thinking one of his staff members had come back, Bailey found the footprints did not continue inside. The trail simply ended at the door to the empty room. A few years later, Howard Bailey was once again the hall director in Barnes Campbell Hall. Was in the building one night over the summer, again, the only person in the building, and he heard a large crashing sound. He walked into the stairwell to find several metal trash cans strewn up and down the stairs. Upon walking the building, he saw that on every floor, housekeeping staff had pulled the trash cans out of the room, scrubbed them off, and set them there to dry. The only floor that was missing trash cans was the 5th floor. So Howard Bailey would go on to become the Dean of Students and Vice President for Student Affairs at WKU for years, and has been interviewed several times over the years about his experiences in Barnes. He's always maintained that while he doesn't believe in ghosts, he just knows these things happened. In one interview with a reporter for the College Heights Herald, he's quoted as saying, "If I let these things really bother me, I'd probably have a difficult time coping. I just know it happened, and I accept it." It's kind of a good way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just gonna move past this.
You just drug the whole mood down, so I'm like trying to deal with that for a second.
I know, sorry. So over the years, multiple residents and staff have claimed that the elevators would often run by themselves, especially late at night, doors opening on the 5th floor to reveal no one inside. There are also other stories of the showers turning themselves on. Now, this story is near and dear to my heart, not just because I work for housing, but from 2009 to 2011, I was the 5th floor RA for Barnes Campbell Hall.
I forgot that.
Yeah. So while I never personally experienced anything, one desk worker during my time claimed that she heard the elevator running one morning around 3 a.m. Expecting it to be someone coming to take over for the next shift, she had looked over at this door as the doors opened, but the elevator was empty except for a small ball of green light that flashed for a second and then disappeared up into the elevator shaft. So
I know you've told me that.
So Barnes was torn down in early 2021 as Normal Regents Hall neared completion. But you have to wonder, did the demolition finally release whatever was causing all these incidents over the years? Or did it just move to the shiny new buildings next door?
Well, I guess you all can tell us later. Again, mood killer. I was like, I'm sad now. Okay, no, we just have one more thing we want to talk about tonight before we wrap it all up, and that is Van Meter Auditorium. So where you all are sitting. We love it, right? We thought that would be a good way to end it, right? Don't say that. Don't stop.
I'm not.
So the first thing I gotta say is, A, this is the one I love because this is what I do. I work in theaters. I've worked in theaters since I was in college. I don't know why your computer just keeps going ding. But Why do we think theaters are haunted? I don't know. Basically, everything that I could find online, every book that I could read, everything I've been trying to dig around about this for years, boils down to this. Theaters are a hotbed for constant energy, right? We're a little
Dramatic.
Yeah, theater is just full of energy all the time. There are theaters that are just full of people doing such intensely dramatic moments that have so much energy constantly that why wouldn't ghosts, if they are made up of energy, be attracted to that, right?
Sure.
So, that's what I'm going to give you as the brief thing. We also, have a thing in theater called a ghost light. I was like, some of you know what a ghost light is. Basically, it's a light that we would roll out onto the stage at the end of the night when you're locking up. It serves two reasons. Really, the practical one is, you don't want to fall off the stage when you're coming in with it pitch black to go turn everything on. Because I've fallen off the stage
So you don't want to become a ghost.
Right.
So it's the anti-ghost light.
We didn't have a ghost light in the theater that I grew up in from like the age of 10 till I was like 20 when I was still going back and working for them. So I fell off the stage a few times. It was not fun. But it also is there supposedly so that the ghosts have their time. It gives them light to use the stage while you're not using it. I always think that's kind of nice. So let's talk about things that aren't nice. Okay. There is one thing I have to say before I go into the actual stories here. I have to tell you the one that I think is the absolute dumbest, most absurd story about this theater that I've ever heard.
Are you really going to insult the potential ghost that's in the building we're in right now?
If this one is real, it can haunt me.
You might as well have a Ouija board right now.
Because I've never heard of this until I started reading some of these Herald articles and Talisman articles and stories. Basically, we all know that WKU in Bowling Green sits on one of the largest cave systems, or the largest cave system in the world, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, that means that people believe that there is a ghost, apparition thing that lives in the caverns and caves underneath Van Meter and has supposedly found its way up into Van Meter. And when he visits, and yes, it's gendered, I have no idea why. It's just a gendered ghost for no reason. I don't know, whatever. He carries a lantern that shines blue light. That's it, that's the whole story. So this is not Phantom of the Opera. I don't know why we're trying to pretend that this is someone living under the stage. I mean, it's not Phantom of the Opera. It's not Phantom of the Megaplex. One person knew what I was talking about.
I'm not kidding. He made us find that movie on Disney Plus and watch it.
We had made him watch it one night, and it was the best thing ever.
This does not hold up.
Anyway, moving on. We have to get a little sad and also talk about this now, okay? So, before being named Van Meter Hall, this building was, the building that we are in right now, was known as the Administration Building. Inside is Van Meter Auditorium, which has held countless lectures and concerts and plays and commencement ceremonies and chapel exercises by WKU's first president, Henry Hardin Cherry, right? Where apparently he was very inspiring and would deliver these very inspirational, I hate this word, orations.
He was a noted orator.
Anyway, so construction on this building commenced in 1909 with a skylight planned above the stage, somewhere up there.
Right there.
And then it would be up there above this 2,000-seat auditorium, and officially it opened in 1910 and was dedicated in 1911. According to all the articles that I was finding. So here's the old story. This is how it was always told for a long time, or at least when I was growing up. One day, a person who was working on the skylight up there looked up and spotted an airplane, right? What you gotta consider is, if we're talking 1910, that's the early 20th century. Seeing an airplane is bizarre, right? People are not used to seeing that, especially not in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
It's like those things, like memes, like, what would kill a pilgrim? Like Sprite. Like McDonald's Sprite would kill a pilgrim.
Okay, so this is the way the story was told for a long time, right? It's a worker on the skylight, looks up at this airplane that they've never seen before, loses his balance, and falls to his death right here on the stage. Right? Save. So, it has long been said from that story that you can still see the huge blood stain that was left from his death, even decades later, no matter how often the stage is cleaned or even replaced. This is always the story, okay? Now, another version of the story says that this happened in the 40s, and that the skylight was being covered, and a worker fell. Okay, so those are two versions of it. But there's a real version that happened. So, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring you back down for a second before we talk about the haunting part. So we know that an accident actually did happen sort of like that. So on September 2nd, do I have the picture? I forgot to change my own slides.
I can't cue you for your slides.
Okay, well this is old pictures. Okay. We like this. I put this in here only because I think it's really pretty. And then here's a picture that really gives you a good idea of what this stage looks like with a lot of stuff gone from it. And then here's one where you can see where the skylight was. Okay, so now that we're going to talk about the real story, there's where the skylight was. So on September 2nd, 1918, an Army aviator was heading for Bowling Green to give a demonstration at the county fair. A young man named Henry Clegg had joined other students who had actually gone up onto the roof of Van Meter to witness his arrival. Now again, this is a very, very, very cool thing for 1918, right? So Clegg then rushed forward for an ideal view and unfortunately fell through the skylight and died a short time later in a hospital. Okay, so he did not die here, right?
That feels better.
We know that parts of this were not accurate, but there was a tragedy. There was a tragic accident, and we know that that releases an energy that could cause some issues here, right? And that's just one incident, right? So that is supposedly the thing. I've never seen the blood. I performed here when I was in high school with some groups when I was in band, but I never saw it, and I kind of always very morbidly wanted to see it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Because I was just interested in it. So I don't know if that's really a thing that has ever happened, but it could have been. And I keep looking around thinking I'm going to find the spot, and I don't want to find the spot.
That would be, like...
Wait, no, it's too early. There's another one that has that. Y'all are awesome. Okay, so other than that blood stain, right? What are some of the other things that have been happening here? What's wrong?
I think you have another slide.
I do have another slide, sorry. I'm glad you remember. Yeah, so this is how we actually know what we know. It was actually written up in newspapers. This horrible, horrible death was actually recorded. So some of these things, we don't know what's going on. We actually know this one. Okay, so if y'all want to look this up, I think these came from a Louisville newspaper and something else. I don't know, newspapers.com, man.
Are they sponsoring us or something?
I wish. So, okay, now, other than the blood stain, what are some things that have happened here? Well, one thing that I found a story about was that in 1972, a student was working in the theater with a touring actor named John Chappell. Okay, John Chappell was performing as Mark Twain, right here in VP Henry.
Wrong school, wrong theater.
I know. My boss does a Mark Twain, and he's done it for a long time, so it is very weird to read this story. But he was performing as Mark Twain, and before the show, he had asked that student to give him calls, right? 10, 5, 2.
Thank you, too. Stop.
So he would go and he would say, you have 10 minutes until curtain, 5 minutes until curtain, 2 minutes until curtain. And he says, okay, great, I'll do that. So he does what he's asked, 10 minutes. He goes, he says, you have 10 minutes until curtain. He receives a thank you from the actor, which is common, that's tradition. Again, he gives him 5, receives a thank you, and goes to give him a 2-minute call, and he hears the actor again say, thank you, I'll be down there shortly. returns to the bottom of the stairs, those stairs. Oh, that's my understanding from this, it's those stairs over there. I don't know if that's accurate, but y'all can correct me later. But the student returns to the bottom of the stairs to talk to his friends and tell them that chapel would be down shortly. They respond with a confused, "What do you mean? He's already over there," pointing to a figure across the stage, dressed in white, just as chapel would be to play Mark Twain. So the student responds, "Well, I don't know who that is, but I just spoke to chapel." And what does he do? He does that bullheaded, very Taurus thing to do, and says, "Okay, I'm gonna go figure this out." He approaches that figure to go, what's going on? Who are you? Why are you here? You're obviously not chapel. I just saw him and spoke to him. As he approached, the figure seemed to just lean into the curtain and disappear. At that moment, he looks back across the stage to his friends and says, "Did you just see that?" To which they all respond, and I kid you not, this is how this was written in multiple articles, "Yes," which I assume is supposed to be, yes. But that should be multiple E's or A's and not an S, but that's a pedantic thing. So the S just makes me go, "S," and that's not right. But at that time, exactly as he said it, John Chapel, was that his name? Chapel, begins descending the stairs to begin the show. And they still say they don't know what that was.
I would have exit stage left.
Okay, now, this is my last thing, so if there's anything you want to add to this afterwards, do it.
Okay.
So one of my favorite stories is one that I found corroborated in some articles. Okay, I'm going to give you this picture too because... And that is okay, I'll be honest, that's a fabricated picture. Okay, it's a fabricated picture. There is a personal favorite story that came from that same band director because she had gone to school here. She studied music at Western a long time ago. Yeah. So, this is the way I heard it and mixed with the way it was told in the story. There was a brief incident in 1967 during a rehearsal for the tragic opera Carmen. Now, my band director always says that she was playing in the orchestra for the show, so she was there for that rehearsal. And while they were on a break, during it, a young actress strolled across the stage when a red spotlight suddenly beamed directly on the girl. And that's why I was laughing about the red earlier. But red has always, always, always been the signifying color of death in theater. And especially in Carmen, there is a specific moment of a red light. Now, the professor, in this instance, that was interviewed said, "I don't believe that this was anything," because here's the problem, there was no one in the booth.
I can't see back there right now, so.
There was no one there. So he thinks, well, it could have just been a faulty lighting system because he said it was very old, it wasn't great, it wasn't a good system. But my band director and every other person that was there, and this is in the article, disagreed with that assessment wholeheartedly and believed that it was a ghost speaking to the performance. I don't know if that was good or bad,
Yeah.
but there is one more that I could not find the rest of it for, but basically there are multiple stories of someone in the dressing room who looks up and sees someone behind them while they're putting on or taking off makeup. And I'm just gonna tell y'all, I don't know if any of you have been in theater before and worn like stage makeup. It is gross feeling by the end of the show. And when you're taking that stuff off, it is a freeing experience, but it is very, very hard to do. I usually have to do just a little bit of it and then go home and like fully shower and like scrub.
Yeah.
It's a bad situation. So that one is from that story, and if you were to look up and see someone in the mirror in any dressing room that I've ever worked in.
If I look up and see someone in the mirror anywhere that I'm not expecting.
Okay, that's fair. But I would lose my mind. Okay, and then this last one, I'm gonna let you say what you want for it, because you had me put it in.
What? Oh yeah.
This was weird to me.
So in coming up with this, not intentional at all, President Henry Garden Cherry gave all those great speeches on the stage. Yeah, his funeral was right here. That's his casket. Right where we're sitting, so.
I mean, the stage has been redone, so.
Yeah, but still, like.
I'm not a big funeral person. I'm weird about funerals. So the thought that there was a funeral in here,
Like right here, right here.
I don't like that. I worked for a funeral home at one point. I still don't like this.
Yeah, so. That's a lot of flowers.
It is a lot of flowers. Y'all's people loved him.
So, obviously. What? That's so cool.
Well, I'm so sorry, but his funeral was here and now I'm creeped out. I really do actually apologize.
You know what else is creepy about President Cherry? Not to diss on your ancestor. The statue of him in front of Cherry Hall, those aren't his hands. Yeah.
How do you know?
I've been here a long time. I've absorbed a lot of random information. So when they were casting that statue, the cast of his hands got messed up, and he had already passed away. That had already all happened. So they had to find a replacement for his hands so they could recast the bronze. So there was another faculty member here that was good friends with him. I think it was Dr. Stickles, maybe, was his name? Sounds made up, I promise, that's what it is. So he had a similar stature, had similar size hands, so they casted his hands. So the Cherry statue actually has like his friend's hands, not his own. It's kind of sweet, right?
Is it sweet? Do we know they were friends? Because if I was him, I would haunt the heck out of somebody that used that as an excuse to put their hands on my statue. And I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, but I would haunt someone for that.
But that is how Cherry doesn't have his own hands. It's kind of cool. So, just like I've absorbed random pieces of information, you all are all going to absorb those random stories, those random pieces of information while you're here. There are stories we didn't tell. There's a lot of stories we didn't tell. There's a lot of different traditions and history on this campus, and we would just encourage you all to go out and make it your own. Find out those things, and find those things you connect with. Every one of these students we talked about, that we're talking to Victor and Steve and Jim.
But don't use a Ouija board
Don't
to do
use a
it.
Ouija board to do it.
Talk to each other, not the ghosts.
But I guarantee you, those memories of having those types of experiences were some of the core memories those students had about their time here at WKU. And so if that is something that interests you, go find it for yourself.
Go find the ghosts. Just do it naturally without a Ouija board.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Awesome. So thank you all so much for coming out tonight. We really enjoyed hanging out with you and getting to talk to you. And then I think we have some stuff from some of our master plan mentors possibly.
This
Yeah.
is not something I know anything about.
I don't either, I'm just gonna go in with it. So if you want to listen to past episodes of Creepy Campus,
Oh my god, I didn't plug it. Go to creepycampuspod.com.
yeah, so listen to past episodes or listen to the future episodes as we get ready to release season 5. You can do that on your new Amazon Echo Dot that we're about to give away.
Oh my god. I did not know that's where you were going with this.
I was trying to get into it.
Okay, so hidden in some of these seats is one sticker. And if your seat has that sticker, this is yours.
The rumble of people looking under their seats.
Look really hard.
What color is it? Is it glow in the dark?
I was really hoping it was this thing I found on the ground. I was really
Did you
hoping.
find it? Then it's yours.
Oh, man. Mississippi.
Also, again, thanks for coming out tonight. We had a great time, and we will see you all again. So thank you all. Now I have to go to sleep, so I have to go to rehearsal for my